So in this video, we're going to keep track of how many items are on the scene. So I've already set up a scene with several actors. So I have 3 different actors, very basic. And I'm going to set it up so that when the circle runs into a square, it's going to destroy the square. So let's add a collision for an actor of type. So when the circle, that's the self, hits a square, then we will kill the square. And that way we can reduce the number of squares on the screen incrementally, but make sure that would kill me. So I want to make sure that I choose the actor of type. This would be me. This would be the actor of type, the square. So then I should be able to go and collect those now. I'm not going to run that because that will take time to compile. But we're going to add to our scene a behavior. And the behavior we're going to add is a behavior that keeps track of how many items are on the screen. So let's go to the rules setting, and there's a items remaining option here, and we're going to use that. And we're going to monitor things for a specific group. So I'll need to make sure that I've created a group to use with the items that I'm counting. So I'll do that now. I'll go to settings. I'll create a new group, and we'll call this the squares. And now I have a group that the squares can live in. We want to make sure that our player, which will be the circle, can run into the squares. So make sure that the player can intersect with the squares. So then my circle will have to be a player, and my square will be one of the square groups. And now we can go back to our layer or our scene, and you'll notice that I don't have my group here yet, and that's because if I make changes to groups when I have a tab open, I may need to save the game, close that tab, and then reopen it to make sure that it gets refreshed with the new groups. So if I go to my behaviors now, I should see that there's the squares group. I do want to display a counter, and I've already made a font for that counter so that I can display it. And we'll display that up in the top corner of the screen, but not right up in the corner. Oops. So that right there will allow me to keep track of how many items are on the scene. I'm not going to switch the scene when there's none left. So let's test the game and make sure that it's doing what it should do. All right, so you'll see that I can now count. So I have that it says that there's 0 of them though. And that's because I have triangles in the scene, not squares. So I'll need to go back, and I'll need to make sure that I've added some items to the scene. So I'll go to actors. We'll create some squares, and I'm actually going to just line them up on either side. Okay, and now I should have 4 of them when I run the scene, but I also need a way to collect them. So I'm going to go to the circle, and I'm going to make sure that I've added a behavior for movement. So I'm going to give 4-way movement, and I'll choose just the default controls so that I can move left, right, up, and down. And once I've done that, now I should have everything I need to go in and collect them and actually see the count drop. So when the game runs, I'm going to go and collect the squares, and theoretically, my counter, so notice now it shows 4 because there are 4 squares. And if I move, notice that when I collect a square, the count goes down. Now when I reach 0, I have an option to do something with that. But what I need to do to make it happen is I need to go to my scene that has the behavior, and I'm going to add a custom message, a message that gets sent when something happens. And I'm going to say like squares collected or something like that. Notice I have no spaces in that. It's just a generic identifier. That's the message that's going to get sent when I'm all out. And then I'm going to go to the scene then, to the events. I'm going to add a custom event. And it needs to match that exact name. So squares collected. Whoops. Make sure capitalization matches. And I'm going to double check that I spelled it the same by going to behaviors. I could even copy and paste that so that it's exactly the same. Okay, and then I'm just going to draw some basic text on the screen, or do something. Maybe I'll just create another triangle on the screen so that we can see that it actually happens. So I'll create another triangle on the screen. We'll put it at the middle of the screen of like 320, 240. Just so it's there. That way we can see that we've actually collected them all and something happens. So if I save the game, just so I don't lose my work, and I'm going to test the game, and now I should be able to collect all of the squares. When all the squares are collected, something should happen because I am sending a message out to the game. The message is called squares collected. So there's one collected, two collected. No, there's only two left. One left. Now when I touch this last one, boom. Notice my triangle showed up because when I had 0 left, it sends a custom message. The custom message does something. And that's how you use item collection counting in Stencyl.